Welcome to another episode of How to Start, Grow and Monetize Your Podcast with me, Alex Chisnell, and Mr. Him.
James Byrne, Mr. Him.
Okay, we are going to be talking about how to monetize your small audience, okay? What I want to start with on this particular episode is, okay, if you're looking to monetize your podcast, no matter what size you are.
I am, tell me more.
Set a figure. Okay, so a monetary figure,
Yes.
Set a goal, okay? So if you have like 99.9% of podcasters out there, or prospective podcasters, a small audience to start with, what's your figure? You know, how much money would it take for you to pay all of your bills, all of your outgoings on a monthly basis?
Yeah, nice.
Okay, and that could just be, okay, I want to pay all my bills. So my mortgage, my energy, my water, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Then you can add another layer and go, okay.
Your paddle addiction, you need quite a big podcast.
My energy drink addiction.
Your energy drinks, your paddle memberships.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Then you can add it and go, okay, and this is the lifestyle that I would then like to have. And this is another X, whatever. And I remember doing this years ago on a course, a property buying course, and they set that out with the psychology.
Oh God, yes, okay.
Yeah, one of those, and it was like most people don't know what their number is.
Your financial freedom figure, don't they call it that?
Figure. Something like that.
Yeah.
But most people have no idea what that figure is. But when you break it down,
so you come up with an arbitrary number. I need 10k. Do you though?
Do you really? Exactly.
Do you really? No,
yeah.
Actually, your outgoings are 3.5k. So you could buy your time back 6.5 grand early.
Correct. And most people, as I say, have no idea. But when you actually break it down, again, a huge proportion of the population, it's going to be something like 2.5 to 3.5 grand to cover everything, depending on where you live. Okay, it's not going to be 7 grand, 8 grand, 9 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand. Yes, you can add that other layer on going, what's your dream figure going to be to give you this lifestyle where you've got the second home and all the travel and the walk-in wardrobe and all the rest of it.
Wow, we took a dive inside your mind there, didn't we? He wants to travel, he wants a walk-in wardrobe. I didn't see that coming.
I actually have nothing to put in a walk-in wardrobe, so just can
your paddle rackets.
Paddle rackets. my baseball calculation.
I was about to say your baseball cap and your trainers.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think could be really useful to start with is to look at what does it actually cost to run your podcast, and to work out what is the wash its face price of that. And I've had that with clients before. We mentioned this in a previous episode. There was a client who came to us and he said, I want to monetize my podcast. I hear it all the time. You probably hear it all the time. I want to monetize my podcast. I want to monetize my podcast. Cool. How big's the audience? I don't know. Well, how the bloody hell do you think you're going to work out how you can monetize it if you don't actually know how big the audience is? So we looked at the viewers on YouTube, we looked at the short form content, we looked at the listeners, and we combined all that together. We did a rolling 90-day average. We said, on a 30-day basis, it's X, Y, Z. It was about 2 million impressions or reach. Depends on the sort of the metric or how you phrase it. But in that instance there, he was like, wow, that's much more than I thought it was. I was like, yeah, that's a good size audience, 2 million impressions a month. I said, I said to him, what do you want to get paid? He said, I just want this to wash its face. It can't cost me anything. I don't care about making a profit, but it can't cost me anything. So we ended up finding him a sponsor, securing him a sponsor for $2 grand a month. And it covered him all of his costs. Yeah. Like I say, for a lot of people, that would be your cost of living is covered, or a good chunk of your cost of living is covered. So work out what is that number to you and make it something that's tangible. Because like I say, otherwise it's like, I want to monetize my podcast. How much do you want to earn? I don't know. As much as possible. When you leave the target as arbitrary and open as that, you're not going to take a step in sort of confident faith that you're going to achieve the outcome, because you don't actually know where you're trying to get to.
Nor is Mr. Universe, when you manifest, is going to deliver that for you,
mate. I'm all about the universe. I believe it. So so once you worked out either your lifestyle cost or your production cost or whatever, how can you monetize the audience? Now, one of the first things I think is really important to say is you don't necessarily need a massive audience to be able to make a substantial figure for your podcast audience. You might, for example, we've got and I've mentioned this all the time on the show before. It's a great
example,
because it is a really good example of this.
Best one we know.
Well, I've actually got one before that, and then we're going to go into this one. We look after a AI for the pharmaceutical industry podcast. I have never, in my 200 plus launches,
listen to an episode.
You take that back, Jim. You know what you're talking about. Today's one was about pharmaceuticals. But anyway, so I've never seen so. You're trying to get me sacked. Are you trying to poach my clients for an agency? But they get probably 5 outreaches a day from guests, from people who want to come on, because it's such a valuable industry. Everyone is trying to get onto this podcast, and people in that space. I don't know anyone in the pharmaceutical industry, so I couldn't. It could be.
It's not what your dealer told me, innit?
Yeah. But please stop. This is the worst episode ever. I forwarded some of the emails forward to the client. They're like, "Oh yeah, they're massive in our space." I had no idea, so I'm like, "Well, instead of them being a guest on your show, why don't you pitch them to monetize that podcast?" Now, in terms of the actual listening figures, you're talking about a sub 10,000 downloads a month podcast, which for all intents and purposes, for most sponsorship advertising agencies, they would not even look at your podcast until you got 10,000 downloads, either on a monthly basis or sometimes on a per episode basis. But that's if you're doing standardized adverts. But that audience there of sub 10,000, but it's for the AI for the pharmaceutical industry, that is really, really, really powerful. Plus, if you add in the ability to reach out on your LinkedIn and your short form content, and you couple that all together, you can make quite substantial numbers. The other great thing about podcasting industry, because it's not brand new, but it's newer than traditional media like billboards, like radio, like TV. It's a bit the Wild West out there at the moment. There's no hard and fixed cost. In terms of like CPM, so cost per mille numbers, those are floating about. It's between sort of $15 and $25 per thousand. Yeah. But in terms of like a branded podcast sponsorship deal, there's no hard and fast rules. So you can pretty much pick the number that you want to get paid. So it goes back to the purpose of this. I bet if I frame that AI podcast in the right way, I bet I could get 10 grand a month. In fact, I'm going to do it live for the podcast. I'm going to do it as a challenge. I bet I could get a 10 grand a month because
nice figure.
The audience is so desperate to be on the podcast. Or the other way you could do it potentially, and I don't normally advise this, and I don't like it as a model, but you could do it. You could get guests to pay to be on your show. Yeah. Now, that happens a lot in the States. There's a lot of podcasts that are set up just for the purpose of monetizing guests.
Which would not get me out of bed. I
hate it.
Yeah, I wouldn't get me out of bed.
As a model.
Yeah.
But again, could work.
Could work.
The other thing with those niche audiences, look at, for example, I've got some notes here to make sure I don't miss anything. Digital products and online courses. If they have tuned into your content for XYZ information, there's only so much you can give them in half an hour, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, whatever it may be. Like, for example, when you're listening to this podcast, if you want more information, you should go and take our course. If you are someone who's looking to start, grow, and monetize your podcast, go and take our course.
Absolutely.
That's how we can monetize.
It's a digital product.
It is a digital product. We can monetize, so we can monetize our content with, because this sort of show, for example, it's always going to be niche. It's always going to be sub 10,000, 20,000 downloads. You're not going to get a big audience for it because it is a niche and a niche and a niche. But equally, it might be very valuable for certain software companies, certain microphone companies, certain studio hire companies, certain production companies. So there's an audience that is valuable, not necessarily in its size, but in its depth of interest in that field. But also, as we said, with a digital product, we can make something one time and get paid again and again and again, because we could put a link in the show notes, which we should definitely do. Click the link in the show notes and you can go and have a look at our Start, Grow, and Monetize Your Podcast launch course.
And you can also break that down into other digital products, of course.
Yes.
We've got a full course of 5 chapters each containing, 5 to 7 episodes within each.
More than that. There's 60 odd videos, I think, across the 50. Yeah.
And then we've got 20 to 30 digital templates, roadmaps, cheat sheets. And I've done this before with my old courses that I know we both recorded different courses during Locked In. Locked In?
Locked In, we were.
We were locked in during lockout. Lockdown, oh my God, I can't. It's the energy drink. But what I was saying was, from that course, I would then have different options from those products, the templates, the roadmaps, the cheat sheets that people could buy for a small monetary figure, but that would bring them into my funnel that would ultimately lead them to the course that they could then purchase for a bigger price. So I agree with you. I think if you can digitize the information that your audience desires, i.e. the reason that they're tuning into the podcast is to get the answers to the questions they're looking for, the problem solved, then you're onto a winner. Why wouldn't you do that? And it's not as difficult as you think it's going to be either.
No, absolutely.
Especially with AI. Go and listen or watch to that specific episode.
Yeah. The other thing as well with digital sort of products, and you talked about it there, there can be offshoots from that as well. So like I say, you could have on the sort of top of funnel, you can have, so like if you look at the sort of the marketing of a podcast, like this podcast is completely free, top of funnel, you can get it for nothing, you can enjoy the information, brilliant. Next step down might be, we'll go and download a free ebook on how to start growing Monetise Your Podcast. Brilliant, that's the next step down the funnel. Next step from there, hey, if you wanted to launch your podcast, you could do our course. It's $495 or whatever it is charged at the time when you click onto the link to go and find out more information about it, which you should definitely do, by the way, subconscious sell. Then from there, if people then can't afford to pay for that, or some people don't want to pay for that, then why not download the cheat sheets or the blueprints, and that's $47. So you can either do that as a bump upsell, or you can have it as a downsell.
Yeah,
from
side sell, upsell, downsell.
You put your wholesale in, your wholesale out. And then the other option, so then you're sort of going down the funnel in terms of sort of the price point or the sort of the volume of people in it, and the price point normally goes up as you go down the funnel. Correct. The price normally increases. So then, for example, you can get people who've done the Start Go Monetise Your Podcast course. For those who want to take it really serious, you might go, right, well, let's run a mastermind. Maybe we do that in person. And that could be $1,000 a month to be part of that. We could do a live retreat, a podcast retreat. Always
wanted to do that.
A podcast retreat.
Yeah, Ibiza.
That'd be. Can you imagine how much work it'd get done? Not very much between the drinking and the paddle and the partying. But keep an eye on for. We could. That would be good fun, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We wouldn't get a lot of work done, but we'd have a lot of good fun.
Be great.
We know a lot of YouTubers and podcasters who like Ibiza. I reckon we could do that. The White Isle. Good times. Can you call it the White Isle still? Was that I know it's called that, but was that a 90s reference? I can't remember. Don't worry about it. Yeah. But so you can sell other products off the back of that in like a mastermind model. So that's sort of all education.
Event, retreat, all of that.
Exactly
education,
that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But also then don't forget there is the option, even with a small audience, that right now there are ways that you can monetize an audience without running any ads, without running any sponsorship, without doing any deals or anything like that. Like Spotify for Creators is paying you a percentage of their premium subscribers now.
Correct.
But you've got to meet their criteria for monetization. So I think you've got to have 1,000 recent listens in the last 2 months. You've got to have XYZ listen now, which you have to have a look at that. Same with YouTube, for example. The monetization only opens up at a certain point.
1,000 subscribers and 3,000 listen hours.
Something like that. And then obviously bear in mind that they will be, to monetize YouTube, at the very least, the majority of that money will be coming from putting adverts in front of your content. You might go, well, I don't want adverts in front of the content. Now, those platforms, both of them, YouTube and Spotify, are now paying you a percentage based on the premium subscribers, but in terms of how much that's going to be monetizable, it's probably going to be negligible. So bearing in mind that anytime you want to sponsor, and this is something that I think is really worth bearing in mind that a lot of people don't think about, anytime that you are looking to monetize your content, you are potentially devaluing or diluting the quality of the content, because some people don't like adverts. Yeah. Some people don't like sponsorship messages. They think it detracts from the content.
And other people pay the price to not have adverts.
Exactly that. Yeah, so you can have a subscription or whatever model. So there's loads of ways to do it. But again, the reason why we wanted to cover this subject off today is because I think a lot of instances, the whole thing of like, how do you monetize a small podcast audience? You can do it, and you can do it very, very well. The value of the audience is not predicated just on the size of it. It can be the quality and the depth of that audience as well. So if you are in a micro niche of a niche of a niche, don't be annoyed that you're never going to get more than 1,000 downloads per episode, because those 1,000 people might be the decision makers who can make multi-million/billion pound decisions for other brands and businesses, who will pay substantial amounts of money to get in front of that target audience. Yeah,
and also I would say don't listen to those people, because I've seen them out there saying, you won't be able to monetize your podcast if you have a small audience. You can only monetize a podcast if you treat this as a business and you are, you're getting sponsorship deals. It doesn't need to be that way, because the figure that you want to reach to give you financial freedom is going to be very different from the figure that they need because they've got a team of 10 people on the payroll.
Yeah.
If it's just you and this is a hobby, or you've got an assistant helping you to do this, a VA, a PA, etc., your financial freedom figure for this podcast, your production costs are going to be way, way lower.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't let that stop you.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review wherever you download your podcast. If you have been watching on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. And if you're a content maker, an existing podcaster, and you're going, yeah, I've got a great monetization strategy on a small audience, let us know in the comments. Love to have you guys joining in with your comments and feedback about this episode. But from me and from Al, we'll see you on the next episode. Ta-da!